Okay, picture this. You're divorced, you're broke, and you are desperate for an idea. Any idea to make some cash. You glance out your window, you see the moon hanging up there, and a thought hits you. I'll sell it. Sounds crazy, right? Well, today we're diving into the absolutely wild story of the man who actually did it. So yeah, that incredible idea, it hit an American guy named Dennis Hope, all the way back in 1980. Now I know it sounds like the punchline to a joke, but for Dennis, this was a serious light bulb moment, an idea that would literally change his life and build a multi-million-dollar business, basically out of thin air. And that really is the big question, isn't it? I mean, can a person, just one guy, really claim the moon and the planets, the whole solar system? Well, the answer is way more complicated and honestly way more fascinating than you'd probably guess. Okay, so to really get this, we've got to rewind to that moment in 1980. Dennis Hope, he was having a tough time. He figured he needed some property to rent out to make a little income, but he had none. So, what does he do? He looks up at the biggest, most obvious piece of real estate he could think of and decides, you know what? I'm going to do some research. So his first stop was, believe it or not, the local library. He starts digging into the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, the big international agreement that governs all this stuff. And right there in black and white, it says space is the common heritage of all mankind. And crucially, it says no country can claim it. So that's it, right? Game over? Well, not quite. Not for Dennis. See, where most people would see a dead end, Dennis saw an opening. He looked at those words not as a no trespassing sign, but as an invitation. He was convinced he'd found a critical flaw, a legal loophole so big you could, well, fly a spaceship right through it. And here's the kicker. It's all about the exact wording. The treaty is super clear. No nations, no countries can claim ownership. But, and this is the big but, Dennis realized it says nothing about an individual, a person. His logic was kind of brilliant in its simplicity. If it belongs to everyone, it belongs to no one. And if no one owns it yet, well, why couldn't he be the first? So what did he do? He jumped on it. He actually wrote up a formal declaration of ownership for the moon, for all 8 planets and all their moons, and mailed it straight to the United Nations. And he didn't beat around the bush. He told them flat out his plan was to slice them up and sell them piece by piece. He even put a little note in there basically saying, hey, UN, if you guys have a problem with this, just let me know. So what do you think happened? What did this massive international organization do when faced with this, let's be honest, completely audacious claim? Crickets. Absolutely nothing. They never sent a single letter back. And for Dennis Hope, that silence was all the confirmation he needed. He took it as a thumbs up and, well, he got right down to business. And this is the moment where this whole wild legal theory explodes into a real honest-to-goodness business. We're not just talking about the moon anymore. Oh no, he started selling plots on Mars, Venus, Mercury, you name it. And the craziest part? People actually started buying it. And when I say people started buying it, I mean a lot of people. To date, this whole venture, which, remember, started with a guy reading a treaty in a library, has pulled in something like $12 million. In fact, since 1995, this has been his full-time gig. And at its peak, the numbers were just staggering. Get this, around 2007, he was apparently selling about 1,500 properties per day. And it wasn't just regular folks either. He claims more than 1,800 big-name corporations bought land from him too. And the client list is something else. We're talking tons of Hollywood stars, huge companies like Hilton and Marriott, and this is the wild part. He even claims 3 former U.S. presidents are on the list: Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, and George W. Bush. So you might be wondering, how does he decide who gets what plot? Well, this part perfectly captures the charming craziness of the whole thing. He literally told the BBC, he just takes a map of the moon, closes his eyes, and points. And in his own words, it's not a scientific method, but it is fun. But believe it or not, the ambition didn't stop there. I mean, selling off the solar system wasn't enough. As more and more people bought in, a new question popped up. Hey, how do we protect our lunar property? And the answer they came up with was to take this whole thing to a completely new level. They decided to form their own government. And they weren't messing around. They spent 3 whole years drafting a constitution. Then, in 2004, they held an online vote for all the property owners. And get this, over 173,000 people voted yes. So they officially declared themselves a sovereign nation called, wait for it, the Galactic Government. They even claimed to have diplomatic ties with 30 countries back here on Earth. Okay, so after all that, the loophole, the sales, the self-declared space government, what's the real story? What's the bottom line here? Is any of this legit in the eyes of the law? Let's bring this conversation back down to earth for a minute. So what's the actual legal verdict? Well, despite that clever little loophole, the experts are all on the same page. It's a unanimous no. An individual simply cannot claim ownership of the moon. The whole spirit of the treaty, what it was trying to do, makes that pretty darn clear. And what's really fascinating is Dennis Hope wasn't even the first person to think of this. This kind of thing goes way, way back. Back in 1936, some guy named Dean Lindsay tried to claim all of space. And then in 1954, a Chilean lawyer famously bought the moon for $1. And the best part is, he supposedly only did it so he could join a fancy social club that required you to own property. You can't make this stuff up. But here's where the story takes a really interesting modern turn. Because, okay, the law is clear. You can't own the land on the moon. But it is super, super vague on something else. What about the stuff you dig up from the moon? The resources? International law is basically silent on the rules for private companies that want to go up there and start mining. And that right there is the next huge legal battleground. So in the end, those deeds from Dennis Hope, they're probably just fun novelty items. But his crazy story accidentally stumbled onto a massive, massive question for all of our futures. That old outer space treaty, it desperately needs an update. Because as private companies get ready to head into space, the big question isn't who owns the moon anymore, it's who owns the stuff we bring back. And for that question, right now, nobody has an answer.